finally here. You've finally arrived. You've at last found the one place which holds the answers to the questions of the ages. You're excited. Your heart palpitates. Is it real? Can it be true? You're understandably hesitant, yet determinedly hopeful. That is good. Your faith in such matters will be rewarded. You'll not find patent cliched answers here. No! Here is a place of clarity, of definition, of explanation, of truth. Here combines science and religion, removes tradition and replaces it with fact. Here the universe is holographic, intangible, ethereal, yet substantive. Here is a place where time is understood as atemporal. Here there is harmony amidst chaos. Here is where the darkened glass is finally cleared. Here is where you'll find the answers to all the unanswered questions which stretch across the cosmos.
And you are across the cosmos for the next hour. I am Chase Rockwell. I am your host. I am joined once again in studio by my co-hosts,
Lou Rogers,
Mark Wilson.
We pick up last time where we left off discussing the situation with the Twin Towers, the World Trade Center, September 11th, 2001. Was it a government conspiracy? Was it the work of a terrorist organization fronted by Osama bin Laden? Was he actually the one solely responsible for bringing down the World Trade Center towers, Building 7, well, the entire complex actually, as well as putting a huge hole in the Pentagon and putting a plane in a field outside Shanksville, Pennsylvania? Could this have been the work of just this one man, his twisted ideology, and a group of sycophants willing to do whatever, martyr themselves in order to meet Allah? How was it possible that all of this could have been done when there were already established protocols in place to prevent just such an occurrence? Protecting our skies from unwanted aircraft, especially around sensitive facilities such as the Pentagon, is nothing new. The Pentagon building itself is a reinforced structure with blast-proof windows. It is monitored by a host of different agencies, not the least of which is the Department of Defense and NORAD. How anything could have gotten that close to have actually struck the building simply is beyond me. I don't understand it. And when you read the 9/11 Commission report and you read the military's response and explanation, it is the stuff of fiction. It is beyond belief. And it is also an insult to the citizens of this country and to those who lost their lives, irrespective one's political leanings. The United States government and the people who work in our United States government owe the citizens an explanation. This is not a dictatorship. Our government is unique in all of the world insofar as that we, the people, run this country. We elect individuals to go up there and do the job for an appointed period of time. Now, this has been completely turned on its head. And those people who are blessed with those opportunities to serve the public at large in jobs which are, let's face it, desirable, cushy, and have a tremendous amount of perks, have instead turned it into their own little personal fiefdoms. And they use the very people who have put them there with their votes as little better than slaves. Now, I am personally disgusted with what has transpired with 9/11. I do personally believe that it was a conspiracy. I do personally believe that there was a greater vision, if you will, that the globalists decided would be better for the country, or not the country, but the world as a whole. But that isn't how the United States was conceived. That isn't why it was conceived, and that's not how it's supposed to run. And the reason we bring this subject up now is simple. We are heading into election season in the United States. In about a year and a half, we are going to elect a new president. Barack Obama will have termed out of office. And there is high speculation that it will either be Jeb Bush, the younger brother of George W. Bush and the son of George H.W. Bush, both presidents, or Hillary Clinton. Neither is good for this country. Neither should receive anyone's vote. But because both are globalists, it is likely that both will receive all of the support from both the major parties, which leaves the citizens, the actual people of this country, at the mercy of the few elite. And don't kid yourself. Don't believe that just because a vote for Hillary is some sort of a progressive move because we've put a woman in the White House. There are many capable females who are more than able to do this job. But they aren't Hillary Clinton. And that's enough of that. I don't want to continue to editorialize. But what I am saying is this. When we elect scoundrels, miscreants, criminals, when we elect the selfish, the self-serving, the self-possessed, when we elect dictators, then don't be so surprised when their behavior reflects what they are. And what we have elected are the miscreants, the criminals, the dictators. You can call them whatever you like, be it a Republican or Democrat. It makes no matter to me. These are people who have been blessed, as I said, with a position to serve their fellow man, and they have abused that position. And as a result of such abuse by previous leaders, and I won't name names because there's no need, Republican or Democrat, they are both the same party. Just call them G. No more D, no more R. Just put parentheses, G, parentheses. Globalist is what they are. And globalists do not want a sovereign United States. They do not want a strong United States, because a strong, sovereign, exceptional country such as the United States actually works against their eventual goal. Every country must be homogenized. Every country should be equal, because if it is not, there is the chance that one country will rise up, and in so doing, the globalist plans go out the window. Make no mistake, globalists have no country allegiance. You may be listening to this and you may be thinking that George W. Bush was a great president. George W. Bush lost me before he even became president. When as a Christian, when as a self-proclaimed born-again Christian, he allowed Carla Faye Tucker to die. That told me volumes about the man's character. Had he not been planning to run for president, had he not pandered to the tough-on-criminals crowd, I believe he would have pardoned her, or at least commuted her sentence. She did not need to die. Everybody, including Pope John Paul II, had petitioned him to spare her life. And he hid. He hid behind the Texas Parole Board like a craven coward, and he murdered that woman by doing nothing. And he did so he could be elected the President of the United States. Well, he got his presidency. And make no mistake, I firmly believe that he knew what was going to happen on September 11th, 2001. You can call me a tinfoil-wearing hat lunatic all you want, but this is what I believe. It is my opinion, and thus far in this country, I am still allowed to have one. I don't think that will last, and I think that should the globalists get their way, this will eventually be one of the victories that they will succeed in. So let us pick up now with my co-host Mark Wilson as he delves into his opinion with respect to 9/11.
Can I read something?
I don't know, can you?
All right. Because all available evidence points to the controlled demolition as the most logical reason for Building 7's particular collapse pattern, serious questions now need answering. To wire a building of that size for implosion requires weeks of careful study and planning, which means whoever wired the explosives knew far in advance of the September 11th potential plot. So who and why? Perhaps Larry Silverstein has an answer. In July of 2001, 2 months before the attack, the new leaseholder of the Twin Towers in Building 7 took out a huge insurance policy on the buildings. In it, there was a special clause in the case of terrorist attack.
And I had heard that.
As a result of the collapse of Building 7, Larry Silverstein pocketed almost $1 billion, $500 million of it in profits. For the collapse of the Twin Towers, which he also owned, Silverstein argued in court that he should be compensated twice because their two separate airplanes had struck. He won his argument and was awarded $7 billion because of the tower collapse and has been paid off fast. He himself made a verbal and a grave blunder in an interview with PBS where he admitted that he and the fire authorities decided to pull or implode Building 7 on the afternoon of 9/11 in a way to avoid or incurring a more loss of life. The video clips can be viewed. If you want to take a look, just view them.
Well, wait a second. Can you go back over that part again now? The afternoon of September 11th, he imploded the building. Deliberately.
He called for them to pull the building.
Okay, so that
those are his exact words.
Rescuers wouldn't be imperiled while they were...
Right. When asked to explain these strange and incriminating comments, Silverstein refused for 2 years to explain or clarify what he meant by pull the building. Until finally, an official release statement over 2 years later claimed that what Silverstein meant was to pull the firefighters out of the building. But that's not what he said. He said pull it, which is in trade talk, implode, meaning that there was already detonations, there's already detonators there. And this can go around and around and around.
Is, like I brought up, in the metallurgy of all the attacks, we find traces of thermite, which burns at an extremely high temperature and will eat through steel faster than a white-hot knife through a slab of butter.
So what's the I guess let's cut to the chase here.
I thought you were the chase.
It appears as though we're all essentially on board with the fact that this wasn't a rogue terrorist attack.
No, it couldn't be. It's too carefully planned and coordinated.
Well, we have a whole bunch of things.
There's too many variables that would need to happen
At least 9 of the so-called terrorists are still alive or were still alive after the attack. These suicide terrorists were...
Okay, you got me on that. I've not heard that.
Yeah,
So there was 19 hijackers.
There
there was 20, but he got his passport
one
clipped.
got his passport pulled, but there's other ones where...
So there's 19 of them.
let me call up the information.
And you're saying that 9 of those 19 are still kicking around?
Well, I remember I could be wrong on the number, but if I remember right, it's 9.
Well, when you look at it,
this week.
as you're looking that up, you're saying that these people came into the United States and outmaneuvered and outsmarted both the U.S. government and all military disciplines.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that is the official government position.
It is an impossibility for it to happen.
I concur.
There's too many variables involved that they would have been checkmated at several different points just by standard
doing their jobs.
operating procedure. Okay, no, it's impossible.
But if people aren't doing their jobs, if people have been ordered to stand down...
has nothing to do with people doing their jobs. We think it's human error that created this.
No, you're misconstruing. What I'm saying, if there was an order to stand down, and that's long been part of this whole lore, is that there was orders coming from above for certain people to stand down. For example, why didn't Andrews Air Force Base scramble those jets the moment they detected that there was a problem? Why does NORAD pass off everything? NORAD, holy hell, NORAD. If NORAD is waiting for orders from the FAA,
what does
what
NORAD
the
stand
hell
for?
is NORAD even doing in business? Close them down.
What does the word NORAD mean?
Fill in the hole, close them down. Get rid of Cheyenne Mountain, the whole bit. Blow it up, put plants in it. Okay?
No, I'm moving there. It's going to be my survival shelter.
If NORAD isn't going to do their job, why are they there? Why pass it off to the FCC or FAA? That's asinine.
Especially,
I can't even begin to imagine a scenario by which that would be acceptable.
After the first tower was hit, there's no question they knew it. So
they knew it before. I know this from personal experience.
You had 18 minutes
before.
Later, the second tower is hit. And then 40 minutes after that, the Pentagon's hit. So what happens after the first tower's hit, NORAD's aware there's a problem. There's a problem.
You think?
So they would react immediately.
Gee, in 1981, we were watching for ICBMs coming over the Arctic Circle and or spy planes from the Soviet Union, because China didn't have that capability yet. China wouldn't get that capability until Al Gore sold them all of our satellite weapons technology in 1997.
Is that illegal?
Gee, you'd think.
Well, I don't know, but they
He sold it to him?
Well, he redesignated all of our secret satellite weapons technology from the Defense Department to the Department of Commerce, and then sold it to him. Well, that way it's not illegal. My ass. Okay.
Who got the money?
Well,
that's a whole different. We're on a different stratosphere. It's not about money. It's about control and allegiances.
Two different people got money. The government got money from the people that could sell it.
It's not about money.
But the Clintons also got quite a big contribution to their campaign funds from Chinese.
I want to get back to the whole aspect of who has what to gain by doing what was done. I always look at the fruit of the
why
endeavor.
was this done?
I know that there is no way that the Patriot Act and Homeland Security would have ever seen the light of day had the fear of God not been put into every human being in the United States and the world, if you will. Okay.
What was missing at this time in our history? What did America not have?
Morality.
Aside from morality.
There's a host of things. I don't know what you're driving at.
Okay. We were no longer at a Cold War with the Soviet Union.
The wall had fallen. Yes, we were in a few years of peace. So
what was the one thing we were missing that we have again
today?
A
boogeyman.
We have the boogeyman.
Well, no, I understand.
We
that.
needed a boogeyman,
but why? Why do we need a boogeyman?
Because if we don't have somebody to be rallied against and fight against that is faceless, nameless, and lives 3,000 miles away from you, that you can't hate and want to kill,
why did we
then you start investigating what your government does. You start paying attention to it.
Why did we enter the Vietnam War?
Why? Well, there's varying theories.
Now that we look back and we found out what really happened, were we attacked?
No,
we were.
This was all part of McNamara's domino theory.
Right.
Correct. So, in other words, we entered a war under false pretenses.
Well,
and guess how much money was made?
Oh, there's tons of money made. General Dynamics, Bell Helicopter.
Pearl Harbor, we now know, was known about days before the attack. Actually, it was over a week before the attack, and they let it happen. Why?
Well, we forced.
I know that there was a couple of
situations
situations going on with Pearl Harbor. If you want to get into my opinion of the situation, Japan, being a landlocked country, had tried taking inroads into China. Essentially, they were looking to establish their own hegemony in the Asian countries.
Our government knew about the planned attack.
Yes, but
long
here's the
before.
Deal. Who strikes the first blow? If you strike the first blow, then you're looked upon as a bully, and we're looked upon as imperialist, etc.
It is real simple.
So if you let them strike the first blow, then you can come in and be the big hero and savior, and no one will question you.
However, it would have been real simple to alert the different disciplines of military on Pearl Harbor of an impending attack.
Why?
To prepare for it.
When FDR allowed Japan to bomb our ships in Pearl Harbor, guess what he got in return? A whole friggin' new fleet. Paid for with no questions asked.
But who paid the price?
To start with, the fleet that was destroyed was
aging.
The problem is that
decrepit at the time.
A lot of people paid for it with their lives and had no knowledge.
Cheap.
And they fought with patriotic feelings.
Life is cheap to these people. What they got in return, some of those ships were from the Great White Fleet from the turn of the century.
My point is that I understand why the government did it. The people didn't realize the government would do something like that.
No, because FDR was everybody's papa. You know, he got on the radio.
But it wasn't until years later they discovered that to be a certainty.
What? The progressive liberals still don't get that. Okay, he's some sort of a god.
So the point here is that this is such a huge, huge series of atrocities that it overwhelmed the United States public. It overwhelmed us.
About
the 9/11.
9/11. Okay.
It wasn't. See, if it was just simply one building, we would have isolated on that one building.
It wouldn't have given them the return that they wanted if it had just
But
been one
this
building.
was absolute devastation. This was checkmate to the United States, both the military and the private sector.
I don't think it was checkmate. I think it was a smack to the side of the public consciousness in order to get them cowed, and that's exactly what happened.
It was checkmate in the sense that it accomplished what it was set out to do. The problem is we don't know what happened. So we buy the government stories stating that it was box cutter held terrorists.
Yeah, that's asinine.
That did everything here.
I don't believe that.
And we have no recourse except to accept the fact that they're dangerous, they're out there, and they plant bombs, and they're going to get us. So we turned over to our government
Our
special
lives.
powers that have never been rescinded. It was guaranteed that they would be rescinded.
Now, here's the situation. Let's get into that for a moment because I want to discuss something here that is extraordinarily relevant, and I want to talk about something else briefly. First off, the Patriot Act. There are 3 articles of the Patriot Act. 206, 215, and Section 6001. These articles give the United States government, essentially it suspends the Constitution. As I said in our opening, and I said in the opening, you are guilty until proven innocent. This is a complete reversal. It turns on its head everything that I also mentioned in my opening, which is the Bill of Rights and our Constitution. Now, what's going to happen on June 1st of this year, 2015, is that those 3 sections are going to what we call sunset. They will expire. They're gone. They will be removed. They're no longer at the availability of the United States government. Now, newly appointed Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has proposed a bill whereupon, let me check here, he wants to, here we go, he has introduced a bill called, I can't find the bill's name. Anyway, he wants to re-up those sections of the Patriot Act until December 31st, 2020.
I understand.
So he wants to give it another 5.5 years. About 5.5 years. My point is this. Okay, McConnell, supposedly a conservative, supposedly on the side of the good guys, if you will, especially if you're anti-progressive liberal, Obama, etc. These 2 guys, they're all the same as far as I'm concerned. McConnell wants to continue this draconian inroads into our constitutional rights, our trouncing of our constitutional rights, even though it's been demonstrated already that they cannot be given, what's the word I'm looking for? They can't be trusted with their word. Snowden, you can call him a traitor if you want, but all Snowden did was tell us the truth about what our government was doing behind our backs and the fact our government had lied to us. Where would we be if Edward Snowden hadn't revealed those situations with the NSA and the spying and the surveillance, all without warrants, all without cause?
That still goes on.
I get
it's
it
been
goes
going
on.
Let me share something.
It's not supposed to go on.
Do guns kill people?
Of course.
No. Okay, now let's hold it right there. And the reason
guns
why
have the potential to
they
kill
have the potential, depending on who wields the gun.
Exactly.
And we understand that.
Exactly.
Now, the Patriot Act actually has some really valid and good points.
The Patriot Act is crap.
Let me just finish.
Crapo.
It's nothing but a gun. And it depends on who is handling that gun. Now, when we have good leaders, let me finish this. When we have good leaders and we have just people that are handling that law properly, we have nothing to fear.
You know, when it was first passed...
That statement relies on 2 things that just don't happen. One is the idea that people are good, and 2 is that they're just.
When it first passed, those were the exact same words I said to my wife, which was, in the hands of a decent president, this is an odious law. In the hands of a lunatic, we're dead. And what's happened is that in the hands of what a lot of people regarded as a decent president, if you are of that particular stripe, George W. Bush, it was odious. Okay? In the hands of Barack Hussein Obama, it has been a holocaust.
I'm not so cynical or critical of our leaders, I
am.
suppose, as you, is that there's a lot of good, honest, hard-working people out
Why
there.
must you always make apologies for these people?
No, I don't.
Let
They
them
are.
stand and fall
There
on
are
their
people
own.
out there in government that would die before they break or hurt somebody. I know
Yeah,
this.
none of them are elected.
Well, no, there are. There's a lot of wonderful elected officials. My point is,
Name
my
one.
po-
Just one.
my-
Just one.
My point is this: is that in the wrong hands, the law can be horrible. I understand.
And the founding fathers understood that too, which is why they built in certain rights.
right.
Yeah, let's, if we're going to go back to the whole idea of what the government was supposed to be, the founding fathers picked the term president for a very specific reason, to be the ruler of our country. At the time, there was a big to-do. They didn't like the idea of the name president because at the time, the word president meant manager, nothing else. It wasn't to be a giant office. It was, look, you're established to manage the country for your elected time, and when you're done, you're done. You're not Mr. President afterwards. You're not former president.
Commander-in-chief.
You were just the manager.
Yeah, he is
And
the
that's what it
commander-in-chief.
was.
Commander-in-chief. It's a
Now,
good system.
Now today it's not. Today it carries a pomp and circumstance and a bunch of crap that it was not designed to do.
I don't
But
find
regardless of that, we go back to there are people in power that seek power. They seek for control, and the Patriot Act gives them an entire venue that turns our laws null and void.
Well, and there's a reason I believe that is the case, and it goes into the whole globalist mindset. You want to know why, in this regard, that you find progressive liberal politics and supposedly Republican politics
I hate politics.
on the same page, and that is because you're dealing with people who are both globalists. The Bushes are globalists, okay? The Obamas, the Clintons are globalists,
Agreed.
okay? The United States of America is nothing but another piece of the overall empire, which is the globe. If you give one country an edge over another, you set up an imbalance. And if you are a globalist, you don't want imbalance. You want everything in control. George Orwell constructed a world in his book 1984 whereupon there were three super countries, Oceania, Africa, and Pacifica. And at any one time, two of those countries were at war with the third. And that's what the populace was told. But they were all, it was just one big government.
right. But you're looking at the globalist as something as an evil thing.
It is an evil, absolutely
let me-
to the core, black-hearted,
Let me show
tar evil.
you who love Star Trek, the United Federation of Planets. They weren't just globalists; they were universalists. They
They weren't
believed
universalists. They were a section of the galaxy.
Right. You see, so my point is that what they're looking at is in their mind, they're not looking at like, oh, we're going to perpetrate evil on the American public
Absolutely.
or the world.
Absolutely.
They're looking at like, wouldn't it be better if we had a one world government and the laws were all the same, currency was all the same?
That is socialism and or slash
no,
communism.
it can become that.
Not with this group of people, it can't.
So my point is
You
that
put Jesus Christ, the Lord thy God, in front of it. And
He's
then
a
I'll-
globalist.
And then I will go with you.
when
on
he
that.
comes back, we have a theocratic kingdom.
I
it
get
says.
it. I get
so
it.
So he's a globalist
but
too.
here's the difference between Jesus Christ and Barack Hussein Obama, and that is a vast difference.
Jesus doesn't think he's
and
Obama.
that is Jesus wants us to be equals. We are Christians. We are Christ-like. Obama wants us to be subjects.
I understand. My point is that the term we're taught to shy away from the term globalism, but in essence, it's exactly what Jesus said he would do.
Lewis, we've lost him. He's gone. He's turned to the dark side.
No, my point.
Come back.
My point
Come
is
back,
that
Mark.
it's like guns or any other type of weapon or venue. In the wrong hands, it can be abused. In the right hands, it can be something that helps people.
Yes,
You know.
and power corrupts, and absolute
I
power
agree.
corrupts absolutely.
Okay, you're stating essentially the obvious, but I don't know why it's being applied in this particular situation.
No, my point is you keep hammering on the Patriot Act. The Patriot Act, I understand it.
Patriot Act shouldn't exist. There's already laws
when we were
in place that adequately
Here's
take
the
care of
problem
that.
When we were discussing it, I was against it. I'm not new to not liking the Patriot Act. The moment we start taking away any right from the Constitution given to the people, Keep in mind, the Constitution's sole purpose is to limit the power of the federal
government. Yes.
Okay,
It's to protect the people from the government, not the government from the people.
Right, but we screwed up a long time ago, just like different countries around the world screwed up. In hindsight, they regret what they allowed. For instance, Sunni law is being practiced in Europe in some places.
Yeah, and
they want to
it doesn't
practice
work too
Sunni
well.
law here and in Canada. And
Canada, they're making pretty good inroads.
yeah, the problem
because
is
Canada doesn't have a constitution like ours.
So what we have is a situation like the Patriot Act. What it does is it bypasses a lot of people coming in, taking citizenship, but really they're sleepers, or they're with some faction group and we don't know it. So if they have citizenship, how do you bypass that?
I could go along with your argument except for one huge hole, and that is this. Okay? Stop going through my dresser drawers looking for every little nitpicky thing you can find when you've got a northern and a southern border open like a friggin' sieve. Okay? Close down the damn borders. Start doing something with immigration reform, because you know what they're finding on the southern border specifically is a lot of discarded Quran and other Middle Eastern type stuff. So it's not just the Mexicans or any other South American people coming over the border. This is entryways, both northern and southern, for Middle Eastern terrorists and what have you to get into our country.
Easy access.
So they get in, they do what they want to do. Meanwhile, the federal government under the Patriot Act is supposedly looking at me. No, I don't think so.
They don't differentiate.
They do differentiate.
But they profile.
But those
Let me ask
people
this.
serve their purpose, whereas I do not. I am the citadel standing and saying, no, America is exceptional. America is the best country on the face of the earth. Anyone who says not should get the hell out.
Let me ask this.
Sounds like a football team.
Under the Patriot Act, we have Homeland Security.
Right.
We have the TSA, the Travel Safety
Oh,
Administration.
for God's sakes.
Let me ask this. Name one terrorist event that the TSA has prevented.
Well, you're stating
Name
something
one.
that's difficult
Give-
because how
give me
many
one.
have they prevented we don't even know about? That's like
Let
saying
me change the question. How many genitals have they groped for pleasure?
you don't know that. For every story you hear,
Let me go to a recent
I have been
scandal
okay.
that was
I
uncovered.
have been handled by those agents, and I found nothing but kindness, and they have been respectful.
I'm not saying that
Did they
the
invite
guy.
you
time-
out for a drink
No,
afterwards?
every single time.
Look, I'm not saying the guy that does the pat down is there doing it for fun. He's
Some of
doing
them
it for-
are.
Some of them may
Some
be.
of them are.
I
Most of them are
guarantee
doing
you,
it for a
some of them
paycheck.
are. Most of them are not.
That-
It's
that
their
is-
job.
That is the case. But the question is, does their job, is it necessary? Does it matter? I flew to Reno, Nevada, right after they reopened the airways in September or October. I can remember going through the lines, standing in hours, and they would search you. They would take away your fingernail clippers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They took away sewing needles.
I understand.
And I remember getting yelled at because I'm talking with my wife saying, what am I going to do with a sewing needle? Hold it up to somebody's eye and say, nobody move, or I poke this guy's eye out?
You don't do that.
Yeah. Then I got
In trouble.
told not. Well, actually, Lars Larson told me not to say things like that. But he was standing two people away from me.
All the
at time.
sophisticated techniques for looking at what we bring on an airplane, they're trying to improve that every year. More and more sophisticated. Some dude gets on the plane with plastic in his tennis shoe, and he's, people jump on him because they see him trying to light his tennis shoe. They don't know what he's doing. They find out later on what he was trying to do. Thankfully, they stopped it.
And he tried lighting his underwear
For
on fire
every
too. But
sophisticated attempt we make in technology to prevent, we got the other side, the dark side, doing the same thing, trying to sneak something on. So I understand their job is burdensome.
Great. You know what
how
would
do
make their job less burdensome? Close the damn border. No one has given me an explanation. Mark, these people... Look,
I'm talking about airplane flight.
I am talking about airplane flight, okay? You know who doesn't have many terrorist problems is Israel, El Al, okay? And the reason is because they take a very hard line. They also don't just let anybody traipse into their country. Okay, so they've only got to worry about certain things. If we close the northern and the southern border and implement already in place laws with respect to immigration, a lot of this headache would go away. Because these people wouldn't already be in the country trying to get onto planes to blow them up.
My point is, I've flown so many times, and I found the TSA agents and the whole procedure, even when I'm singled out, every so often they single you out based on profile. I don't know why, but you know what? Every single time they've been respectful
You're missing the
and
point.
kind.
I remember a time when I can get on a plane and go into the smoking or non-smoking section, okay, and light up if I wanted to.
This is a different world.
Yeah, but that world was much better.
We can't go back to that world, though.
Why
not?
Why?
Because we had evil people in this
We had
world.
evil
We had
people
evil
back
people
then.
The evil's never changed.
Again, have you ever read Solzhenitsyn? Everybody thinks that
How
Stalin
many-
only killed about 32 million.
Okay.
Solzhenitsyn said no, it was upwards
In the
of 60
1980s,
or higher.
I was on planes at various times because that's what I did for a living. I'd fly to different places. I would be always, late. Run into the airport, run right through, and literally run up to the gate and you get on.
Really? And I remember that too, and I loved it.
It's wonderful.
I loved it.
But the point was, at that time, and at that era, there was nobody bringing bombs on the planes.
Yes, there were.
It was
None.
happening
There
in
were.
Europe.
Yes, there were.
Not here.
Europe was dealing with it, and they had it fairly well under control.
Here's what our sponsor has to say about evildoers. In Psalm chapter 32, verse 1, "Fret not yourself because of evildoers, neither be thou envious against the workers of iniquity, for they shall soon be cut down like the grass, and wither as the green herb." Fret not yourself.
That's got to be David.
That's David.
Yeah, speaking in the Psalms. Yeah.
And it brings it, from a Christian point of view, we all know that evil is going to be taken care of in its due time. We have to believe that those of us that have religious views of any sort, that everything that happens in this world is predestined and preordained, in the fact that there's an ultimate God that has a plan.
We are conditioned to accept ever increasing movements of freedom under the pretext of remaining safe. We have become a culture that doesn't understand death. We are very much rooted into the here and now. Even if we hold a particular religious belief or a faith base, okay, you are still finding people just scared literally to death about the fact of death, whereas cultures in the past accepted it as fait accompli. We all die. No one's getting out of here alive. Okay? The whole purpose of the American Revolution was so that people could be free. The United States government, the United States of America, is unique in that it is the last bastion of freedom on the face of the earth. Ronald Reagan said that, and he believed it to be true, and I do too. Under our current last few presidents, that has been chipped away, and now we have a populace like Pavlovian dogs who are just conditioned. When they hear the bell ring, we just give up everything. Here, take it. Benjamin Franklin said, "Those who can give up essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." And I agree. Okay?
Well,
you're talking about the people who go and put their lives on the line as firemen, policemen, military. They're giving up assured safety for the betterment of their fellow man. And their leaders screw them. Absolutely screw them. Now, there's no reason that should be acceptable by anyone. But it is. And then we're told that we should accept it. No, we should be able to take plane flight back to the way it used to be in the 50s and the 60s. Why not? Because here's the logic. If you're going to think it could happen on a plane, it can happen on a bus, it can happen on a tram, it can happen in a cab. Why not implement it all across the board? If you're not going to, and if you're not going to close the borders, then everything you're doing is a scare tactic and is meant to do one thing and one thing only. It's to give you the illusion of safety so they can strip your freedom from you. And that's it. That's all. There is nothing else.
That's in your mind. I understand how that works.
Good. You want to play a psycho game with me? There's lemmings, and lemmings follow the leader.
we live in a very complicated world compared.
We've always lived in a complicated
It's
world.
far more
How is it far more?
complicated.
In what respect?
There's the amount.
Technology, for one thing.
Yeah, technology's. There's you can whoever thought of somebody setting off an explosive via a cell phone.
Does that
It didn't
alter
exist.
the human's heart or human nature?
No, it's just we have more
Selfishness
toys in
is
these
selfishness, and technology will follow. You look,
days. An airline has to be safe. It has to be safe.
it has to be safe, and for the most part, they are. Mm-hmm. But you're always going to have miscreants. It happens, even when you've taken all the precautions necessary. And what we're asserting here is that despite all of these precautions, despite all of these safeguards, the Twin Towers were blown up and had nothing to do with safety. It had nothing to do with laws in place. It had to do with greedy miscreants as our leadership deciding that this was what was going to happen. If that's not the topic of this particular show, I don't know why we're sitting here.
My problem with 9/11 was I automatically believed it was a terrorist attack. I mean, you couldn't help it.
That's how it was sold.
We all did.
And it was a terrorist attack, but we've been misidentified or misdirected.
But
as
as
who the
time went
terrorists
on,
are.
and some haunting problems as you look at the films, as you look at the tactics used, how it went off, the people that did it, and all of a sudden you start coming into these problems, and you immediately, most people just say, I don't want to think about it. It's never
True.
good. I don't want to think about it because it's too terrible.
It is too terrible.
And especially the people that lost lives, the families, they don't want to think about that because the idea that the government was involved in some way is too hideous to even contemplate.
Well,
I don't want to contemplate
It means they lost a loved one for absolutely nothing, is what it means to them.
So I don't want to contemplate it. I don't want to live in a world like this.
Yeah, well-
I don't want to have to question my government. I don't want to even
we
go
do.
down that.
I
You have
love
Well, I don't.
questioning my government.
If
Because if we don't question it, if we don't hold their feet to the fire, all they're going to do is incrementally take more and more of our freedoms away, because that's human nature. Human nature, the base human, is out for himself. Self-preservation, survival. Screw everybody else. That is human nature. That is the duality that Paul fought with.
Maybe this is Pollyanna type thinking, but I just have to believe that there are so many out there that are genuinely concerned for the people that they are representing.
In the lower ranks, I would agree with you. In the upper ranks, I would disagree.
I just don't know their hearts on the
we
upper
have-
ranks.
When Paul was talking about the duality, as he did in Romans, what do you think he was addressing?
You mean the flesh and the spirit?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, the flesh wants one thing. Things that are native to the flesh, because it's of this realm. The spirit desires something else. You're looking at the flesh and saying, but they're good people, they want this. Christ and Paul, who buttressed Christ's claims, say, no, that's not it. The flesh desires the things of the flesh. The flesh understands the things of the flesh. The flesh is going to follow the things of the flesh. And the flesh wants what the flesh wants. So it's going to want things that are contrary to the spirit. Therefore, a lot of charity goes out the window. A lot of what we would regard as good goes out the window. Barack Hussein Obama was
Why do you always
following
say his middle name?
because Hussein
name.
Obama, Barack Hussein Obama.
Well, everyone knows if you say President Obama who it is.
Good. I like saying Barack Hussein Obama.
There's
And
kind
if
of be
he
a
were
reason.
really a Christian, and he held to the tenets of the Christian faith, if he followed Christ, if he was positioning himself as one who was Christ-like, he would resign, because he would not be able to live with the Holocaust he's wrought upon this earth in the last 6 years, specifically. Okay? He is a miscreant.
What? We don't even know him personally.
And he follows his base impulses. He is a selfish man, and he desires power, and he desires it absolutely. He is no different than a Caligula or a Nero or any of the other miscreant Roman emperors or even European sovereigns who have inflicted themselves on their subjects over the years.
I'd have to
This is
talk
not
to
the
him
way
and get to know
our
him
government
to
was
understand
set
that.
up. You can just look at the fruits, okay? And Paul understood this very clearly. So what we're in a situation of is we've got all these different laws. Yet despite the presence of these laws, these things still happened. The Twin Towers were exploded. The Pentagon was blown up. Building 7 was blown up. A plane went into the ground in Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Maybe. The terrorist attack keep happening. Now we've got ISIS with a brand new boogeyman out there and all this other crap going on over here domestically. And as long as ISIS is giving us somebody to be terrified of, we're going to give the government everything we want. Meanwhile, the nice Muslims are over here, and they're doing all this crap behind the scenes legislatively, and we're letting them do it because they're asking and they're saying please and thank you. Meanwhile, they're sticking the knife in because that's what they do. All right? And the upshot is this. It's not going to get better if we just sit back and just say, No, we've got to be proactive. Here's a little known thing. During the Revolutionary War, most of the colonists could have cared less about what Britain was doing. There were some that were hot about it. But for the most part, people either A, didn't want to tackle Great Britain and just put themselves on the line like that, or B, it really wasn't affecting them all that harshly and says, screw it, let it go. We're fine. And it was a Herculean task to get the support to rally and battle back against them. And if it hadn't been for the French, we would have not won that battle. The French had their own reasons for going after the English, as we did. But after the fact, we were given this freedom, granted this incredible freedom to create this country, and now we're just letting it just go back. Because we don't want to get our hands messy. We don't want to get involved. Getting involved sucks. Well, we've got to get involved. If you're a citizen, you've got to do things to ensure the safety of your country. And if not for us, because I'll be dead when a lot of this stuff goes on, but my kids and hopefully my future grandkids are going to inherit a king hell mess if Christ doesn't return. But in the meantime, we've got a task that needs to be handled, and our leadership is not doing that task. Our leadership is out for themselves. So what's going to happen before this June 1st expiration is we are going to probably run into some sort of a little dust up, or maybe a big dust up. There will be something. There will be a terrorist attack of some sort. There has to be, because apathy is high right now, and the tide is against renewing these articles, or these sections of the Patriot Act. People don't want them. Snowden scared a lot of people, woke some people up. And right now the tide is against us. That's why Mitch McConnell's going for another 5-year extension. They've got to do this or it's done. They'll not get another shot at it. So there will be, between now, the time you hear this, my voice saying this, whenever that date is, because I haven't figured it out yet, and June 1st, something's going to happen.
Well, maybe it'll just
I guarantee it.
It'll peacefully go away.
That would be ideal.
And hogs would fly, and
elephants fly.
Bruce Jenner will turn back into a man, etc.
Well, I'm hoping it'll just peacefully end.
We can hope.
Always hope.
But if we just hope and we don't do anything, as a Christian, what is our role? What is our role as a Christian?
Well, it was a slam. The term Christian was a slam.
It was given to us by the Romans, who, yes, I understand it was a pejorative, but in its truest sense, what is it we are supposed to be doing?
To be Christ-like, followers of Christ, of Jesus.
Shine the light of God to others. Be that face to others now that was previously held by
Which is proclaiming the good news.
Yes.
Feeding the poor.
Now, does that mean that we should be good stewards of what we've been given?
That always comes in, stewards of what you've been given.
Why did Paul go to Nero? Why did he go to Rome?
He had a point to make.
He had a point to make. Now, should he have not done that as a good Christian? Should he have just hoped that it would all go away? Or he said, I'm gonna get this person to at least listen to me, or die trying.
But he appealed to Caesar, because which was Nero at the time.
I understand that, and that was part of his right as a citizen.
Because he was a citizen, and they arrested him and didn't take that into consideration when they arrested him.
I get all that, but my point is that Paul knew very well what he was doing, and he also understood his position as a Christian before God, and he could have said,
he was going to use the appellate process in order to preach the gospel to Nero.
Mm-hmm.
But the point of going to Nero was to show it's like going to the Supreme Court, which was, hey, I'm a Roman citizen, and they arrested me wrongfully, and so he would close the case. But that's not what happened.
No, it's not what happened.
Well,
God had other plans.
He closed
God
the
had
case.
other plans.
The case was closed really, really abruptly.
But it didn't impinge on Paul's acting upon his rights as a citizen.
No, if Paul wouldn't have gone to prison, then we wouldn't have had Luke scour the country and write what is known as the Gospel of Luke and the Acts of the Apostles to a man
And Paul suffered
by the
as a
name
manner
of Theophilus, who was to present the case. He was presenting the case
Sure.
to Theophilus. People don't realize who he was.
No, I embrace that, and I actually like it a lot because it makes a tremendous amount of sense. My point was that Paul was well aware of the base nature of humanity as well as the nature of the Spirit, that they were looking for two different things.
Mm-hmm.
Unless we are an example, unless we are a light, unless we shine the way for our fellow man, this is right, that's wrong. And I'm not saying this, getting wound up over stupid things, but presenting an example, abridging freedoms which people have died to obtain is not shining the light of truth on anything. It's just given up. It's capitulation. It's obscene, and it should not be. And we may be taken out, just like Paul was finally marched into Mamertine prison, rotted there for a couple of years before they chopped his head off. But most people remember Paul favorably. They don't really remember Nero favorably. And he went out far more honorably than did Nero. And his legacy has lasted longer than has Nero's.
My view of, let's say, well, just let whatever happens happen. Well, if I'm in an airplane, say a small Cessna, and the pilot falls over from a heart attack and dies, and I'm the only other person in the airplane, I've got two choices. I can throw up my hands in the air and say, well, God, whatever happens, happens, and that plane gets stuck in the ground like a dart. Or I can try my best to land that plane and at least try to survive the impact. What choice are you going to do?
There's also the situation that happened just recently with, I forget the nationality. The pilot who locked his co-pilot out of the cockpit.
Exactly.
And just flew the plane into the ground. How is TSA, how is Homeland Security, how is any of that supposed to prevent that? You can't, exactly. So
it's not their fault.
Stuff happens.
Well, this world is a dangerous place for us.
It is a dangerous place, but we've inculcated people with this mindset that they can actually get through it okay, and they can't.
Attack on the World Trade Center, 98. But
93.
Was it 93?
93, they blew up the garage, yes.
But outside of that...
Cole was 97.
It was hit and miss. They weren't really our boogeyman. They would just occasionally... They were like being stung by a mosquito every once in a while. It was just something that happened. It hurt, but it was annoying.
Well, I mean, it was more than annoying. The explosion in 93 with the fertilizer bomb, the same type that Timothy McVeigh used 2 years later at the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City, that shook people up. Mark, one of your customers was on the phone with putting together an order when that happened. And
I was in mainland China.
I can't remember his name. Pecorella. Felt the shaking. I forget what floor he was on. I think he said he was the 80th floor. But don't hold me to that. It was too long ago. But no, that was a big thing. That was a big deal.
It was,
because who would drive a van into, it took out like 6 floors, into the sub basement.
Yeah.
And good, bad, or indifferent, those people learned a lot about the strength of that structure in doing that, and realized they would have to do a different tactic. Whether or not you agree that government was complicit or not, they were going to have to do it a different way because
I don't believe the government
conventional
had
explosion was not going to do it.
with the
that.
McVeigh. I think McVeigh was...
No, McVeigh was on his own. I'm talking about the 93 explosion in the garage of and I forget which one it was.
We'll never even know that.
Well, all the evidence is gone now. It's a new building, Freedom Tower. How long will that one last? And so it's horrible.
Freedom Tower.
You have to ask that. No, it's a misnamed. The whole thing is a contrivance, and it's sad because
It's called One World Building.
most people don't.
Did you know that?
Too few people
It's
read
an obelisk.
anymore. Okay, well, I guess we should wrap this up now that we've got the federales going to be pounding on our door.
Yeah, with the
But-
big knocker.
These are situations that have been bounced around by, more people than I can even begin to think. Everybody became aware of 9/11, and it was a tragic situation, whether or not you think it was a bunch of terrorists from Saudi Arabia or a conspiracy which involved our very own government and people within that government. No one likes to think that because, many people have fought and died for this country, and the freedom and the symbolism that it has worldwide. I do agree with Ronald Reagan. I do believe the United States is the last bastion of freedom on the face of this earth. Without the United States, the earth would look vastly different than it does today. And why we have people working their hardest to undermine that endeavor to give us freedom really is beyond me. I don't understand it. I don't know. But, of course, I think differently than a lot of people. Clearly, I think differently than a lot of our leadership. Public service, to me, should be exactly that. Public service, not a way to get in there and go from being, a $200,000 a year government employee to being a multimillionaire in the span of 6 years. But I suppose that's the new government. And I'm not a big fan of it. So we will conclude this episode of Across the Cosmos. So for my co-hosts,
Lou Rogers.
Mark Wilson.
and our special guest who
Dan McNutt.
was kind of there and kind of, I didn't want to... We'll have to have you on again.
I enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
You're always welcome here.
Thank you.
This is Chase Rockwell saying so long until the next time you find yourself across the cosmos.
Send any questions or comments to us via email at info@acrossthecosmos.com. Also, visit us on the web at www.acrossthecosmos.com for show updates, news, and other important information. No part of this podcast may be used without the express written permission from the staff of Across the Cosmos. Across the Cosmos is a production of Omite Corporation. Copyright 2015.